call-in shows. Stay for the music and recent replays. Join us at infiniteplane.live for 24/7 live chat with other listeners.
Okay, thanks for joining. It is now 3/12/2021. We're now in the second year of Clown World. Going through your comments, Jenna Lovecraft Reeves says, I never sleep anymore. You know, I was just looking at some new show that's going to come out about H.P. Lovecraft, directed by Spike Lee, which promises to be very interesting. We'll be getting into that, I'm sure, here very soon. We talked about H.P. Lovecraft with one of the previous guests on Dark Matter. I think if you were listening to replays, you heard this. An individual who describes himself as a photographer to the extraterrestrials. And you can find him on the site. That would be Mr. McGill, darkmatter.radio. Phones are open, 833-311-1984. And let's go ahead and go through, first of all, the title of tonight's live stream, just so you know the trajectory of where this chat may go. And by the way, YouTube wrote me a friendly letter 3 hours ago. They said, our team, and so I assume there's at least, 10 or 15 people sitting in a room, like around a table. Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, is there. And they have a screen they're all looking at. They're referencing this. And they say, okay, this video by Infinite Plane Radio. Happy hoax-iversary COVID-19. Rockets are blimps and Biden is CGI. They had a discussion and they decided between all their different terms of service violations, the one that most closely matched what we did last night in that live stream was medical misinformation. So that's all it took. And I don't even know why they said medical misinformation. I said that I'm not necessarily an anti-vaxxer, but I'm pro-anti-vaxxers because I'm really for the free flow of information, not into the censorship. But anyway, they have a policy that says you can't dispute the efficacy of WHO guidance. So if you don't think it's wise to put on 2 masks, well, you should probably keep that opinion off of the tubes. Unless you're like us here at the Infinite Plane Radio, where we have redundant copies. We're like a 17-headed hydra. So they remove that channel. It'll be gone until June. So if you're subscribed to that one, there's another channel that looks just like it. And it just started streaming about an hour ago. Okay, phones are open again, 833-311-1984. I'll put the number on the screen. So the topic again, giant tree stumps in Antarctica and other strange anomalies. Really, the title should be the story about Kobe Bryant. Basically, let me get into that really quick here first. So on this channel, we were one of the first ones to hyper-analyze the reporting surrounding the supposed death of Kobe Bryant, you know, as reported by TMZ. It's like, how do you know, out of 9 people in a burning helicopter, how do you know who was who to report it and tweet about it? I mean, TMZ has some incredible access. But anyway, we analyzed that story, and it seems more or less that it has all the hallmarks of being a major league hoax. And there are many things to substantiate this. Many, many things. But without getting too deep into the Kobe Bryant psyop and all of the predictive programming leading up to his staged exit from the world stage, it is believed that Kobe Bryant's back. And not very creative. I mean, people were wondering, is he going to come back? Do they go to some crisis actor island, some other place? Will they reward their dutiful servants? No, he's actually back apparently as another basketball player, and he's, well, wearing a fat suit, apparently. Well, not a fat suit, but like the suit in Thor, the bodysuit that the actor wears. It looks like Kobe Bryant has one of those. So we will get into that. The giant tree stump topic, let's talk about that briefly. I came across this article and it's just something about it seems a little fishy. Basically, there's an article in Reuters right now about this outcrop. It's a rocky outcrop in Antarctica where you have the South African research base. Now, this is the first I've heard of it. But according to Reuters, this is basically a base in Antarctica. According to them, there's a conspiracy theory among flat earthers that it is actually a giant tree stump. And I bring this up because I've never heard this before. But it says here, in a group called Ancient Giant Tree Truth, with 34,000 members, they captioned it as Frozen Stump. So they drew attention to the South Africa station in Antarctica, and yes, this rocky outcrop does look like a massive frozen tree stump. But I guess because 24,000 people have, or 34,000 people have mentioned it on Facebook, Reuters is out here doing a fact check. And that's kind of what this is. So the actual post that they're referring to says, military camps in Antarctica on top of a giant tree stump. Research flat earth. Well, you can't really see it too clearly because according to independent fact checkers, it's false information. It says here, Reuters fact check. Photos show South African research base in Antarctica built on top of a rocky outcrop. About this notice. This information has no basis in fact. So we're going to go ahead and look at the censored photo anyway. I mean, look at the stuff they don't censor on Facebook. But they censor a rocky outcrop because some people think it looks like a massive tree stump. Well, it does. It looks like a massive tree stump. That's undeniable. Is it a massive tree stump? Well, I don't know. Where's the lumber from this thing? So let us continue. We're going through Reuters and their analysis of this misconception by a group of 34,000 people who actually believe that all of the mountains of the world are in fact the stumps of ancient giant trees that were likely cut down by some hostile alien force and harvested at some point in mankind's distant past. It's an interesting story. It even suggests that the roots, that the tunnels are now miscalled lava tunnels. If you haven't heard this giant tree theory, I believe it started with a video put out, and it was called No Forests on Earth or something, saying that all of the forests that we have are in fact just nothing more than shrubs compared to the trees the world used to have. Hoaxahana says, good question, where's the lumber burned, harvested? Well, that's the idea. I think one of the ideas behind this theory is that our Earth was essentially harvested. They took all the lumber, they basically... In fact, the same people who will tell you that the tree stumps are giant trees will also say that the Grand Canyon, for example, is some kind of excavation, not a natural formation. Okay, so let us continue. This is from Reuters, and again, they're trying to correct everybody on this. It says, This is one of it's the South African Base 4. It says it's one of 3 research stations of the South African National Antarctic Program, or SANAP, which is managed by the country's Department of Environment, Fisheries, and Forestry. The scientific data collected on their expeditions are, quote, critical in the understanding of, amongst other things, the impacts of climate change and weather information associated with extreme events, like snow nados, for example. You know, a few years ago when they started introducing fire nados, it was preceded by fire nados in a movie called Geostorm that was in all the red boxes. So people aren't home watching fire nados on TV, and then they appear in the news. And now we have snow nados. Let's stay on topic here. Basically, it's this. It says the research station is on the western side of a ridge, which is on top of a cliff or something, and essentially it looks like a big tree stump, but it says more visuals of the station can be seen here and here. Wider angled shots will show that the cliff isn't really shaped like a stump, so much as the angle on the social media post would suggest. So I've looked, and here's what it says, and this is from Reuters again. It says, the Reuters fact check team, which is great. You got Reuters following flat earthers around. Like they really care about the unscientific opinions of 30,000 people who are speculating about what might have happened millions of years ago or something. Meanwhile, these same fact checkers are completely oblivious to the destruction of definitions, which you need objective definitions to have any kind of a science anyway. It's like they care about science. Give me a break. They're trying to we're dealing with this massive this consolidation of media concurrent with digital book burning on an unprecedented scale. Okay, so let us continue. As previously explained by Reuters fact checkers, claims about alleged giant tree stumps speak to a belief among flat earthers, conspiracy theorists who contend that our planet is not a globe but a flat surface, and that real trees no longer exist. So there's a statement here from an environmentalist named William Thompson from 2019, and he says, many flat earthers believe that the trees we see are small versions of giant 20-mile high trees that used to exist on the earth in ancient times. In short, the things that we think are trees are actually called bushes. So the original video that sparked this thing was called There Are No Forests on Flat Earth, Wake Up. The thing is, that video, which was very popular, was removed. So are they censoring wrong ideas, bad ideas, dumb ideas? What's their criterion? It seems like they censor inconvenient ideas. If something's wrong, it's wrong, and it practically debunks itself. I always say sunshine is the best decontaminant. Finbar says flat earthers are the problem. Well, they have a pretty good track record. Every major, as far as like looking back in history, let's just say 2020 on back, every major terror attack, serial killer, atrocity, every insane thing was pretty much done by somebody who believed we were on a ball. Although you can't really say that. You can't be that general. People like to say everybody knew it was a ball as of ancient Greeks looking at boats going over the horizon, but that's not even true. The Chinese were essentially flat earthers until the 17th century. So you can't say that people who don't believe it's a ball are somehow deficient. You have entire societies who believe that the world is flat and stationary, and they're making observations. They have their own systems of astronomy, their own systems of timekeeping. So there's some level of objectivity. So I don't think that people should be so arrogantly dismissive of the topic, but they are. And as I said, the video here positing this notion that mountains are remnants of massive trees that used to exist, well, you can't even watch the video and discuss the thing. And I didn't think it was that far-fetched as far as what I was taught as a child in school. I remember being told about that these massive dinosaurs could not exist today because their size would preclude it, gravity or something would be too great. That it was hypothesized that maybe the atmosphere was different then, gravity was different. I don't know. Anyway, it's just one school of nonsense versus speculation and the establishment science. The establishment science is what it is. If they say it's real, it's real. If the masses believe it's real, it simply is willed into existence. And that's really the nature of this thing. I just find it really noteworthy here that people noting that you have the appearance of a massive tree stump is somehow worth censoring. And I wonder, how do they make these determinations, trying to walk this line between satire, parody, and dangerous misinformation. And as I pointed out a few moments ago, one of our 3 YouTube channels was removed for medical misinformation. And again, I have to point out, we're pro-vax here. I say vax the media first, please. And you know what? If anybody ought to be vaxxed first, if anybody deserves to go to the front of the line, it would be all of the fact checkers. So let's just I'm donating the vaxes that would otherwise go to my subscribers to the Reuters fact-checking team. Where would we be without them? Because it's only benevolent. When people are trying to control what you think, it's got to be benevolent. It's got to be for your own protection. A case in point, Truman in The Truman Show. The reason why every single person in his life lied to him and manipulated him so he would never leave was for his own protection. I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking at here. These benevolent dictators. I really don't think there is such a thing. Okay, so this topic I want to get into. So I said giant tree stumps in Antarctica and other strange anomalies. Well, here's some of the other strange anomalies. Jim Carrey and Tom Hanks. The two of them have a number of overlapping synchronicities or references. I mean, they're not even synchronicities. Encoded references to Sirius, the dog star. We're talking Jim Carrey, Tom Hanks, and both of them have roles in movies that make use of very specific types of some symbols and very specific numbers, such as 9/11 and 3/11. So we're going to parse through a video here by Tominoid, and I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat for people who want to follow it later. 33 Ren says, "Hey Tim, I missed the connection how flat surfaces invalidates the trees." Oh, they didn't really make a connection. They just said that people who don't believe in the sphericity of the earth are prone to believing in giant trees. I mean, they make that connection like it's just almost like if flat earth, then everything else is invalid. Okay, let us continue here again. And I'll take calls if people want to call in. Let me go ahead and open phones. 833-311-1984. Ringer is on. Okay, we're going to go and peruse this video for just a moment.
Such a special audience. Yeah.
Okay, so Jim Carrey, we talk about him at length and how these characters, one of the reasons I want to bring them up is that they're used in these protracted psychological operations. Basically, there's a movie separate from the ones that you go see in the theater. And this is the movie of the character evolving in your face on the world stage and what they do, what their roles are. And you'll find that they supplement all of the major psychological operations. Their roles often precede things that happen in, quote, real life, on the news. And you find many, again, it's the consistency. And so we'll get into this tonight, but basically there are many, many correlations between 9/11 and what we here call 3/11. Now, if you're not familiar with that, 3/11 is the date that this was actually declared a pandemic. And I would contend that that date is the, quote, 9/11 of this particular mass mind control operation. Because that's what I think it is. I think it's trauma-induced mind control. And I think they needed 9/11 to synchronize an entire generation around their, hyper-mediation, the fake news. And it's all fake, by the way. But I think they have to reboot the programming for each generation. And I think that the coronavirus, which kicked off on 3/11 as a pandemic, is the thing, is the cudgel that they're going to use for the next 19 years to replace radical Islamic terrorists. Same thing, just on a bigger scale. They scaled it up, if you really look into it, in the sense that they've replaced many of the same things that only pertain to a small group with a universal threat. So now instead of the radical Islamic mind virus that they have to isolate, quarantine in Guantanamo, possibly waterboard to see if they have that mind virus, now everybody has it. And everybody has to quarantine. And instead of having to go through the waterboarding, you just have to go through the test, which if you have to choose between the nasal or the other one, I think a lot of people would opt for the waterboarding. Okay, again, phones are open. I saw someone just try to call in, 833-311-1984. Also, you're welcome to bring up anything at all. A few other topics I want to get into. Here, one, we could talk about the interview earlier we had today with Micah Dank, who talked about the Book of Enoch. Also, I wanted to talk about more predictive programming. It's everywhere, but an episode of Friends that was supposed to air right after 9/11, and they pulled it because it was nothing but jokes about airport security. Maybe that's worth looking at. In this context, a couple of other things. I brought up Kobe Bryant still alive. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Go ahead and mute your speaker.
Hi.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, we had a little bit of an echo, but we're good now.
My bad.
Okay, so what's your take so far on anything that we're covering?
Well, the trees. I think that's very interesting because you bring up South Africa. You bring up Table Mountain, I believe it's called. Or Table Mountain is also known as could be a tree stump. Right? There's some research about that one too. But the one tree stump that I know has been researched a lot, and there's legends about it, is the Mount Roraima, which is in Venezuela.
What's it called? I'll look it up. The picture.
It's called. It's called Mount Roraima. Roraima. And this is in Venezuela.
Okay, got it.
And it's the most giant, they would call a mesa or tabletop, or they like to call it devil's this, devil's that. There's actually a place there that's called Angel Falls or Paradise Falls or something. So somehow they were able to keep a lot of the more positive labels and names to that actual specific mountain. They call it a mountain. And I think it's because the locals, they're not going to let the story slide. There's too many legends. There's too many stories about these, it being this grapevine that the word came down and it fed fruit, different types of fruit all over, huge miles and miles of land, fed all of the land. So there's all of these stories that there's actually Google books about it too that you can links that they talk about the Indians and the Bushmen. They're the Papuan Aborigines. There were also other natives that were about that area, but very, very interesting. when you get going with the tree stumps, because then there's also like a local spot. Well, as I started researching more about Mount Roraima, which is where they also say the dragons used to, like, that was like their main place that they came from, is this tree, this Mount Roraima tree. These are all, stories I've read, stories I've heard people tell me about that they've read. So, and these books are available, for research and stuff like that. Everything's on the internet,
Okay.
but it's worth looking into.
So, okay, the
But
dragons.
there's a place. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, you said dragons. So I'm like, are there any other myths where they specifically mention trees that reach into the clouds or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess there's one. Okay, there's one legend in Mount Roraima talking about the Lord chose the man to carry this black book to the people of Mount Roraima. It talks about an elder, talks about a grapevine, right? So all of this just makes me think of, they are talking about some kind of extraterrestrials. They're talking about some kind of like other angels or aliens or whatever other forces. The Hopi, okay, and then it goes into the Hopi, because the Hopis, they took over the Mesa regions at one point, and no, I don't know if you know much about the Hopis, which I'm sure you do, but it also has a lot to do with the Celestials. And so the other legends that also were saying that the dragons were deifying the mountain, in the sense that in a negative way. So that's why they would receive the label Devil Mountain or Devil's Tower, because there's a bunch of places out here, and I'm in the States, Devil's Tower, Devil's Mountain, Devil Falls, and they're all, when you do the research, look like tree stumps. So something disconnects with the mythology, trying to steer us away from, demonizing these things instead of glorifying them as maybe they were once nature. And then you said something about the dinosaurs, and then I just clicked. I said, wait a minute. Okay, if there were dinosaurs, okay, well, let's just not say that there were dinosaurs. Let's say there were dragons. Okay, let's just say there were some giant beasts that were way bigger. This is the legend everyone's been, we all hear in every culture. Well, if that's the case, then there had to be some kind of large foliage around. It only makes sense. So were there no mountains? Like the documentary said, there's no mountains, there are only tree stumps. When you look into it and you look at the indigenous tribes and then what they say, it makes a lot of sense.
Right,
So,
and it's really suspect.
Yeah.
It's suspect that they don't even want to entertain the idea when, if anything, it would pique people's interest in geology. If they start taking a very extreme interest in these formations, but instead they say, nothing to see here, don't look behind the curtain. And so it's like, well, maybe these things weren't created by erosion. Maybe there's something else that we're not being told. And these stories and myths might hold the key if we're talking about, well, if they're correct, if we're looking at some kind of, what do you think? What do you think would be the cause of these supposed massive trees being cut down?
Oh, yeah, that was another thing you mentioned. Well, okay, you mentioned harvesting, and then I was like, well, maybe they burned them. But then I look over at my side table and I said, wait a minute, they just petrified into crystals. They, changed form. That could be one of the reasons. That could be one of the reasons why the roots have disappeared. When you go into the deep caves and you see all the stalactites and the stalagmites, where the heck do those come from? Is it really water? Is it really erosion? I question it more, because erosion doesn't behave that way, in my opinion. And then when I see the formations of the crystals, if I'm thinking, okay, well, there's so many different species of trees in this world, and I know that crystals, like when I say crystals, I mean like elements, stones, amethyst, turquoise, things like this. Even metals like copper, things like that. They come from different parts of the world. They come from, and so do trees, the seeds. Like there's so many different species. Like, and my point is that there's so many different types of crystals, and they're still discovering new elements all the time. Some elements have very high radiation levels, which would make a lot of sense too, and some of them don't. Some of them are very, very mild in their energy. So that to me is what's fascinating. When I made that connection, when I watched that documentary and looked into it a little bit more, 432 Drop Radio, they have great information about Mount Roraima. Con Drop, he goes into it. Oh my goodness, he goes really into it, and he auto hoaxes the crap out of everything that's about Mount Roraima, Venezuela, South Africa, or South America, all of the Americas. Because the dinosaurs out the window, the globe out the window. They've come to conclusion with a lot of the texts that they've read, a lot of the their voyagers like transcripts that we never read in our history books. Not Columbus's transcripts, but like other explorers and travelers that we never even heard of. But we have their documents, but we have their transcripts because somebody was smart enough to scan them at one point. But I do notice a lot of those books have been burned. A lot of that information has been burned online as well. So, get it while you can.
Well,
you
here,
can
look,
information.
you're talking about book burning, and it's kind of like, well, here we are, 2021, and even talking about this or discussing this alternative backstory to where we are now, it gets the attention of Reuters. And I just found this story to be peculiar because I don't know anybody talking about these tree stump looking things in Antarctica. It goes viral on Facebook for a day, and suddenly, media has these various, tentacles have to go out there. They have their tentacles in every single Facebook group, and they're ready to label it misinformation. So what we're talking about, they could say it's misinformation, but it's like, is mythology misinformation? And that's the line that we're kind of crossing here, I think, by allowing all these censors to rule our lives. Anyway, hey, I appreciate the call. Caller, it looks like we just got dropped off. Let's see here. Phones are open, 833-311-1984. Overthought says, there was a guy who claimed that mountains are formations made from the remains of giants. Right. I've heard that. I've seen some interesting conclusions people have arrived at regarding that. But anyway, this tree stump idea is fascinating, but I'm more interested almost in the overreaction to people coming to these conclusions. And what is kind of interesting about this one is that this is, I guess, what I imagine people imagine the flat earth to look like on the edge. Hey, what's up, caller? I believe we got dropped there.
Oops, my bad. I was still talking about the same thing.
Pretty much. Well, I was actually looking at the picture of Mount Roraima, and it's like up there in the clouds, and it kind of looks like what I think people think the edge of the world would look like if it were flat.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's almost like they took a model of that and said, okay, that's the edge of the world, or edge of the, to fearmonger. And then people actually went down there and they're like, wait a minute, there's all these crystals down here. Half my amethyst, I bought a huge box of amethyst straight from Uruguay. Uruguay in South America. They're saying that there's a lot of these these tree stumps in very portal places, like in Utah and South America, all over the world. I mean, even in China, everywhere that has people, even without people, I'm sure, had probably these types of trees, because everywhere in the world there's some kind of element that develops into these crystal forms, unless we're totally being, joked and fooled, and these are being, here goes my mind, and these are being planted into the ground, or into our reality, and we're finding them going, oh wow, a crystal, and then we make the connection with the tree and all that, which that's really going out there. They're really messing with us if that's the case.
Well, the first
But
one I looked at was the so-called Devil's Tower in Utah, and you remarked how consistent it is that all of these formations are, or many of them, are named Devil for some reason, as though to attach some sense of foreboding to it. And that's one of the things I find fascinating. Anytime they tell you not to look. So that just means that I'm going to probably start opening up this topic now. If people think that mountains used to be giant trees, they should call in.
absolutely, and now that that documentary is down as well, nobody really has a place to go and discuss these things, because it was a big topic at one point, especially for the flat earthers. That for me, one of the first videos I saw about flat earth was that, and I was like, what? This blew my mind. Like, I know these places, and it really did blow my mind.
Well,
And that's how I got into the 432 radio as well, because they have a whole, like, wow, they just have all these old books and old PDFs and stuff that talk about these things, and nobody, there's no resources anymore. So
well, true or
trying to
not,
find the resources.
true or not, though, this thing, it is an interesting idea, and when you watch the videos, you know it's undeniable that you do see these repetitive patterns in nature, which is pretty typical. So, is it conclusive? I don't necessarily think so. However, I think it's worth looking at, and I wouldn't have looked at it if it wasn't for these attempts to have fact checkers bury it. So yeah, anything the fact checkers are burying, I'm taking an interest in.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we have to do. Um, it's funny. I was listening to This Is Where It's At the other night when you called in, and he was like, I just want to go through my notes, right? And me, as a nerd that I was today, I was taking notes. So I just want to tell you about something that I watched on, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Mr. M33BBB channel. I don't know. I'm not trying to like advertise anyone's channel, but he does a lot of like sky sightings, and not to change the subject or anything, but just kind of is along the lines, because it has to do with the sea floor now. So I don't know if anyone saw this, but somebody sent him some Google Earth thing where off the coast of West Australia, there's this structure underwater, and it's like a circular structure, and it's huge, and you can see tracks, like giant tracks. And I'm going, okay. The first thing I thought about was the tree stump. Like, well, maybe it's a tree stump. Maybe it's a tree stump. It's not some like facility, because he was trying to say it looks like a facility, and there's shadowing on this side. Like, he really investigates photos the way, trying to find the phenomenons and things like this. So as I was watching the video, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is this like, are they breaking up Mars into different factions, like different regions? Like, here's Mars 1, Mars 2, Mars 3, and it's underground, like you said, underground. So it's even harder to detect. They're going to take you through the rocket or whatever. You can't see where you're going. You have no idea that you're going underground, underwater, which makes a lot of sense, because NASA, they do all their training underwater anyway. So
Yep, that's true. They do, and that's kind of fascinating too, because I brought this up once, how the astronauts are more or less like these high priests, and they wear this fishbowl on their head when they go to the heavenly realm, space. But if you look at the high priests in the old religions, the Babylonian priests, they have the fish suit because they believe that God is underwater. And I kind of correlated the fish head hat of the Pope, the Mitra, with the astronaut helmet as a fishbowl. And it really kind of is. I think there's a correlation here. And I wouldn't be surprised if everything we're seeing that's supposedly happening way up above is actually happening below, whether it's below the ground or beneath the ocean.
Yeah, very interesting. And the legend of Nuwa, and NUWA, she's like, the legend is she's the goddess, or the mother of men, and she's half fish, or kind of like a mermaid, but she's like, in some cultures she's the mother of men, and she's a giant. She's like a giant mermaid. But I think that's also connected to Nuanet, or Nu in the Egyptian, who is the primordial waters, which is also the mother, right? So, the overlapping culture legends and stuff, it's really telling, and then the whole movie Waterworld and all this. Oh, and then the first thing I wrote down though was Terra del Mar. I mean, Terra, what was it?
Yeah,
Jasmine,
correct. Terra del Mar. You're right. Terra del Mar is a nation founded by Ghislaine Maxwell.
And I'm going, is that Terra del Mar? My mind just kept going, because so I'm thinking Del Mar is ocean in Spanish, mar. But Mar can also be Mars. But then Mar is ocean, but Mars is ocean, is the planet? And I'm going, wait a minute. It's the same word. It just added the S. Like, is there more than one ocean, terra, whatever? They call it Mar because it's the ocean, the sea, but it's Mars because there's more than one. I don't know. My brain, I was going there with this because I started thinking about, well, where are all these people now?
I'm open to that. I really think that Mars is a place on Earth, and I don't think it's new. I don't think it's something they decided
Might be
that.
many places.
Most likely many places. You could have, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole Gulag system just went literally underground. I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking with this. I think deep space might be underground. You mentioned Del Mar. Kobe Bryant, who some believe he's alive, and I found his new identity. He was buried in Corona Del Mar. So, yeah, that phrase, maybe it means something with Ghislaine Maxwell's supposed nation out there in the uncharted seas. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, that's what really got me thinking about this when I watched the video. I was like, wait a minute. A secret underwater base spans nearly 75 miles long. And there's a circular bit on one end that I forget what the circumference was, but it's giant, this thing. If anyone gets curious, it's off the coast of West Australia. There's tracks, you can see, giant tracks that make this off the coast, like they go into the ocean. It's really a trip.
Well, today I was looking at a video by Tracy Twyman called Hidden Hyperspace Kingdoms for the Elite. And she talks about a few things, but one of the things she talked about was this idea that the elite do have land, a continent, possibly Atlantis or something like that, but it's kept from us, and that it's more or less revealed in the subtext of various movies, like and also in some Disney theme parks for that matter. But I don't think the idea is too far fetched, because again we're looking at, well, they have to be going somewhere.
Exactly.
Crisis Actor Island.
And we are right. We already know that they're not going to space. I mean, they can't get too far, so they have to go somewhere. Where else are they going to go down? They know that hell's not down there. They figured that much out. So they're having fun wherever they are. They're definitely, it is a whole different parallel reality. It's a trip when you think about it, because, yeah. And then I think about, I'm going to go into the Terra Papers, which I haven't fully read yet, but I did watch his 3-hour-long, Robert Morningsky's 3-hour-long video. But I want to read the actual papers because there's more information there. But how funny, okay, synchronicities. Terra Del Mar, Ghislaine Maxwell. Then you got the Terra Papers. Okay. Well, Robert Morningsky, he's a Native American. I think he's Navajo or Apache. I don't remember, but he always comes out in his regalia. And he's very proud of, where he comes from and his story. Because it was, told to him from, like, I forget, 5 generations or something like this. Anyway, it really got me thinking, because the story he tells And then the things that Micah says, Micah Dank, about a lot of us do know this, the elites or so-called elites, trillionaires or whatever, the ones that are know more about the monetary system, they're the ones that are going to use astrotheology. And the ones that don't really mind not having that full connection, they're not going to go that far. They're not going to go that far to look into astrotheology. Now, what is astrotheology? People don't really understand what that is. When I discovered astrotheology, I was like, oh shit, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense because there was a disconnect between why certain people were in certain places and where religion came from. Like, the whole thing is still blowing my mind about how, because as much as research that I've done and as much as I feel like I know about certain things, I know it's never going to end. Like the learning and the mind-blowing, like just experiences about reading these documents. So it kind of just clicked in a weird way, where I said, okay, I gotta talk about these, and I gotta get more people to read these. So I'll post them. I posted them in Discord.
Hey, let me run this by you.
Video.
The other day I had a conversation with someone who claimed, he describes himself as a photographer to the extraterrestrials. That interview. What was your take on his notion that the aliens that he was communicating with weren't really in, I guess, high-tech craft, but were actually somehow beings that were more or less telepathically or something, somehow interacting with him? What was your take on that whole thing?
Interesting. Yeah, that guy was Miguel, right? He was an interesting caller, for sure. Because you could tell he had a lot of, like, passion and spontaneity. And he was just, like, the excitement, maybe, because it was still kind of new to him, the experiences. And he was making money. Because I remember he said something about business partners and this and that, which made me think again about these terror papers, because the whole story is there. The connection between, I don't want to lose this one point I want to say about the jalapeno or the bell pepper, right? And he was trying to claim it was a fish or an alien fish, or he was like, yeah, what do those eat? And then they presented him with this thing, and he was trying to claim it was a fish. And I'm going, okay, well, it kind of looks like a sardine. I get that. But someone told him something, or he read somewhere, or he maybe innately knows about the fish. Here we come back about the fish, and that's connected to, like, what you were just talking about, the priests and all the ancients that,
yes,
that were the elects. And who's to say these elite, or I say elite, these alien extraterrestrial, if that's what we're talking about, aren't looking like these fish-headed priest popes? We don't know. I mean, unless we've had the experience, the stories are there.
Well,
the pictographs.
What was he trying to say? It sounded like he was trying to suggest, I don't know, maybe I read it wrong, but something that this extraterrestrials were high up above, and that they somehow left him a sign, an artifact in the form of for all intents and purposes, an extraterrestrial fish, which had some wondering, is he suggesting that space is water and this thing fell? I mean, whatever it was,
right.
It didn't look like any shrimp I've
or
ever
it's
seen.
Underground. No, it didn't even look like a shrimp. So as above, so below. Maybe he was just trying to put that out there without really knowing he was saying that. Or he picked up a bell pepper by accident. He was so high he didn't know what he was,
as above, so below. That's one of the hand signs that you see this priest of Dagon making if you look at the pictures. One hand up, one hand down. And I've seen this basically, I guess, interpreted to mean that above is water, just like the ocean.
And you know what? Check this out. Okay, this is something else I witnessed, that the pictographs that I was telling you about, yeah, they do have that as above, so below, where it looks like the guy is standing with his hands up, and his legs, it looks like an H basically. But then don't forget that that's also the symbol for, um, well, so they say, the photograph of, what am I trying to say? The electromagnetic field, what is it called? The, like the torus, basically, the toroidal field. And if you look at it from its side, you see the arms up and the hands down. It looks like he's saying as above, so below, but in all reality, it's just the side view of the torus.
Okay, I got
Have you
that.
ever heard
Yes,
that?
and here, just someone has a correction. The guy's name, the individual who's the photographer for the extraterrestrials. If you want to look him up, his name is Richard Magill. It's Migill, and you can find him at darkmatter.radio. But he did open up this whole conversation of the nature of aliens being something other than beings in high tech craft, but actually something else.
Well, he was also saying, this was really curious to me, that he was a business partner with them. They're my business partners. He talking to them like he was going to go have a meeting with them in an hour about some product they're putting together. I'm going, what is he talking about, business partner? Right? And then I remember what some of the Terra papers said about how the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers got the inheritance of the earth, how they received the monetary, like, runnings of the earth. That's in the the Terra papers. It's Robert Morningsky. He's got these documents. It says in there how Rothschild has to do with Roth, and the connection between, it's a long ass story. Like, I don't want to give you bits and pieces of it, but just know that it is connected to that. And I mean, it makes sense once you read it, and once you're like, oh shit, this is where the Rothschilds got their inheritance.
Well, let
Or
me run
this
this
is
by you
where
then.
the story is. Mm.
Okay, so the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie is about an alien from, I guess, Mars or whatever, and he lands in New Mexico. And then he finds a human proxy, basically, and he gives the guy alien technology to patent to get rich. Kind of like the story of what you're describing here, that his wealth is attributed to his connection to some other life form or an alien, more or less.
Right, right. So these are the things that I'm still researching about, because that to me is, I've learned about the Rothschilds and the monetary system, the Rockefellers, and and what they've done, and the DuPonts and all this stuff, and why certain things are legal and blah blah blah. But when it came into these types of things, it's like, oh shit. So it opened up a whole new set of research, and that guy. No, I don't want to call him that guy. Richard. He he sparked he sparked that, because I was like, wait a minute, I've heard that before. The business partner thing. Is he trying to tell us? Is he trying to tell us that they're setting the monetary system, and they're looking for new recruits? Because I mean, I don't know how much longer they want these people around. They don't have very many fans. There was actually somebody in the chat the other day that was like defending the Rothschilds, and I don't know if they were just kidding or whatever. They were like, the Rothschilds have got a bad name, and the story's all wrong about them. I was like, whoa, where did this come from? So nobody was even talking about the Rothschilds. So it's interesting to me. It's very interesting how these extraterrestrials made this business deal with him, doing this art, investing in him.
Right.
He was,
Now,
and then he did the whole DMT thing. I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but
well, that came later. He didn't originally contact them with DMT. But something worth pointing out here is that the phenomenon of alien visitations, aliens from above, hybrids, abductions, all that stuff, that's a fairly recent thing. 1947 was the first one, and the whole idea of alien invasion or whatever War of the Worlds and that kind of stuff. I think it's just a modern replacement for these ancient myths, and that it has nothing to do with just advanced technology, but we're looking at some other life form, if anything at all. That's kind of been my take on it, and that's why I was really interested in his, um, well, his way of describing interacting with these things. But it almost sounded to me almost like a form of, well, magic or evocation. And so I'm wondering, is there some overlap, with the occult and magic and so-called aliens? And I see many, especially conspiracy theorists who lean Christian, conflating aliens with demons.
Like summoning. Well, um,
But wait,
see, there's that
you
thin
said the
line.
devil thing.
Yeah,
You said that the towers, they call them all devil. Why wouldn't they want to
right,
label something they fear as, immediately demonic?
right, right. It's because at one point this, in some generation, those places were revered. I, I mean, that's the only thing I can. Because why else would you want to keep your child away from something? They want candy. I'm going into analogy now. They want candy, but it's bad for them. But it might make them feel good, for that sort of period of time. But then if they learn that they're going to get cavities along the line, if they eat too much candy, it ends up being a wrong thing. So maybe that's what they're trying to do with these types of things for us. Oh, keep them away, because if they find out the full story, they're going to be heartbroken and maybe riot or what I mean, like go to NASA
Well,
and
you know
complain,
what?
or I don't know.
I've seen some people get pretty hostile when told that, for example, dinosaurs never existed. And I remember there was one famous paleontologist who was talking about dinosaurs with Joe Rogan. And Joe said to him, "Have you heard of Eric Dubay? He doesn't believe in dinosaurs." And this guy, jokingly, I guess, said he would like to debate Eric Dubay about the existence of the T Rex in an alley with a baseball bat. I mean, he got violent about it.
Huh? Wow. Yeah. People's feelings get hurt because they're so into it when they're. I mean, Land Before Time. Wait, is that what it's called? With freaking Littlefoot, and everybody was raised on that movie. We it was instilled in us from so young. I mean, I remember the encyclopedia. We had like different types of encyclopedia sets because we grew up in the '80s, and the dinosaur encyclopedia set was like the biggest one. And I'd be like, wow, they're so fascinated. They're so magical. They're so dragony. They're so dragony. Why are they so dragony? We never asked that question. Some kids did. But I think it's another one of those things. Keep them away from the truth because it's going to hurt them. We don't want, the humans are sensitive creatures. We don't want to hurt their feelings.
Well,
Because
look,
then they get depressed and they get suicide. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, at the beginning, I was talking
I
about the
mean,
benevolent dictatorship that kept Truman locked in his little prison reality. And maybe they felt like they were doing him a favor, but, he was clearly a captive who had Stockholm syndrome, and he was in love with his captors. But to everyone
oh,
there, it was a harmonious movie set, as long as he didn't find out. And so you might be right about the idea that if there is such a deep secret that's so like shocking and alarming that really destroys the credibility of establishment science, of course they wouldn't want us to know. And that's why a lot of people are really, their interest is piqued by the flat earth topic. And that's why I think that people are looking at this giant tree thing. And it's funny that Reuters is, of course, trying to do fact checking.
yeah. Yeah, they're like, quick, get that fact check button on because people are going to start researching and looking for that video. And somebody has that video downloaded. They're going to repost it. It's just a matter of time. Um, but just like in The Wizard of Oz, I mean, you think all the characters, they were all going, follow the yellow brick road to where? To go see the Wizard of Oz. Why? Because he was going to grant the motherfucking wishes. Okay. But then you get there, and he's the man behind the curtain, the short man behind the curtain, and he's just like calling hoaxes on everyone. So they actually freed the release the demon by going towards it. Oh shit. I mean, I make that mistake sometimes. You're like, oh, your intentions are so good, and you really have, that it's going to be a struggle to get there because that's what life is. But then you get there and you're like, oh shit, I'm in, I'm not in a very good position right now. Like, who are these demons around me? Okay, I gotta learn a fucking lesson.
Well, I'm up for radical historical revisionism in the sense that I'm not willing to start with this point that 66 million years ago, an asteroid the size of Mount Everest hit the Earth, and this is the science that they're publishing, their reports that they actually feel comfortable expounding on. They'll say that the asteroid actually ripped a hole in the atmosphere, meaning that space was touching the surface of the Earth and everything was basically sucked out into space. And they're saying there's dinosaur bones on the moon. So to me, science, or rather establishment science, has already jumped the shark.
Yeah, it's more interesting to say that dinosaur bones got blasted into space and now they're coming back because of magnetism or whatever. They can make up all these great stories. Science becomes more interesting and maybe they plan this from the get. They're like, oh, we'll get to build, and continue to go through the generations because people are going to find out. People are going to dig. People are going to end up going, Mad Mike. People are going to take the risk and go see what's out there.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because we have people
Yeah.
who are willing right now to go to the edge of so-called space to prove or debunk one side or the other. We have Mark Gold, who was on the show about a week and a half ago, and his story went viral for the month of February. So here's the guy getting millions of dollars in free publicity on a crowdfunding campaign to buy a ticket to space for a flat earther. And before he could raise $300, they shut it down. It's like, to me, it's just like, wait, all they're doing is they're making themselves look like they got something to hide.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even someone like that who really took him seriously, you know what I mean, when it came to that, because the whole time he was like laughing and kind of poking fun at it and really challenging the fact he didn't really want to do the experiment. He just wanted to see how much of a fuss he could make about it. In my opinion, it was kind of a popularity thing in my opinion.
Well, he was willing,
but
though.
I don't know the guy.
He was willing to sit side by side with somebody representing believers in flat Earth, and he was willing to go with them. He still is in a suborbital flight. I invited him to speak at Flat Earth 420, which is the April 20th Zoom conference that we're having, and he's going to basically make the pitch. And I think we have a plan here to try to get most of that money.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I didn't know he was involved in that way, because in that case, he's a little bit more proactive in finding answers or having some kind of, substantial evidence that he can see with his own eyes. I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, debating is so fruitless at this point. I mean, I feel like even though you might disagree about who owns the burden of proof, the status quo is set in stone, and somebody's going to have to go the extra mile and actually get some kind of evidence to end this topic once and for all, or it's going to continue despite all the legions of fact checkers they got out there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey,
Exactly.
I got another person attempting to call in. Appreciate the call very much. I have a
Okay.
couple of people here asking, though, if you have
No
a channel
problem.
to share.
Yeah. Well, I just got on your forum, Hoaxahonest, on the IPR forum. I don't know if anyone's a part of that. I don't know if you're advertising that. But that's a good way to get some of my links. I'll put a link in the chat. You guys can definitely talk. I had like some notes that I wanted to talk to you about. So I might. I'm
go ahead.
gonna
Yeah, if you have another topic,
that.
by all means, if you have another topic, bring it up. And I
really?
put a link. Thanks for bringing
Yeah,
that up. So we have a forum at infiniteplane.media, and it's kind of like Discord, but I think it's more lasting because you know how it is in
It's
Discord.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. Uh-huh.
So you can go and
I do.
introduce
I like
yourself.
it.
I think you put a link to your music over here or something, and to your. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I put a link to my store, and my music is there. My store is there. My music's at my store. I'm just, low key and try to design some stuff and bring some more awareness or whatever. My single's Bow Down Babylon. You've played it so many times. Oh my gosh, it's surreal to hear it and to hear the feedback. So it's really cool to have a platform where people do resonate and give me feedback. So that's great. It's like, thank you so much. I'm really humbled every time you play it. I'm like, oh shit. So thank you.
Oh yes. So
But
everybody
yeah,
should know you
now
then.
I'm
Everybody here knows that you're the singer of Bow Down Babylon and also a few other songs that
yeah.
I mean, those compilations that came out in 2020 are really incredible, cutting edge. I think that the music that came out as a result of the lockdowns was one of the best things, to arrive out of the whole situation.
Oh yeah, that was some good times. We definitely had to use that time wisely, and unbelievable that it was a lot of those tracks that we did were people were from all over the world, and we just pieced everything together. Well, the producers, we all pitched in, but like the main producers, really did a lot and did an excellent job, in putting those things together and and having me to be a part of it was so. I mean, I felt so honored to have that opportunity because these are really great producers and musicians as well. So I have a lot of respect for them as writers and truthers or whatever you want. IPSers because I don't like truthers so much because yeah, we'll go there.
Isn't it
Go
funny
there
though?
another
Isn't it funny? No,
time.
we're at a time though where if you're called a truther by the establishment, it's a bad thing. It's like you're known as something of an enemy of the state because you tell the truth. I mean, what does it say about
Yeah,
them? It's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not one with the liars, so I'm a truther. It's like, okay, I'm
right, right. They've twisted up both, definitions. It's like an Ouroboros. Sort of reminds me of. Is like you tell somebody truth, but then you're like, wait a minute, is that fully truth, or is there a bit of a sprinkle of a lie in there? And then you realize, oh shit, I got to dissect this. Even the word that you're saying consists the lie, or the spell, or the trance, or So we have to learn other languages, other syllables and techniques of using your voice in different frequencies as well. And you do that by listening to music in that frequency. Then you start to like play music and then talk, and then everything is, you start to feel your vibration is there, and um, it's just different, and it's different than what everyone else is vibrating on. That's what separates, and just your thoughts separate you from the next person because of the vibration of your thoughts. So that's why I feel like this what they're doing right now, and this is what I'll segue into what I want to talk to next is they're using frequency, which includes anything from music, anything that consists of liquid substances, even air, anything that can catch ether, anything that can catch waves, sine waves, like, uh, um, okay, so I'm going into the virus, the vaccine, all of this, everything that's going on, the music that's being played, Cardi B, Miley Cyrus, all these people, and then even ones that I used to like before, they're twisting these artists into their pawns, basically, because that's what they've signed up for. We all know this. That's why they call them celebrities, because they're just cells to them. They just, they're moldable cells. So what was I going to say about that? Oh, and so with the vaccine is like, or not the vaccine, but the virus itself. Okay, first of all, my children are unvaccinated. Okay, so period, from the beginning. So to give them a vax in the middle of their, you know, their immunity building lives would be detrimental to them.
Well, let me bring this
Also,
up
what
really
would be
quick here
detrimental?
because this
Yeah.
this is what's insane about the environment we're in right now, is they will censor us for talking about this stuff, whatever your point of view is. And the last two times I've been censored, one I was making fun of QAnon, and they blocked the video because they said I was pushing QAnon. And then I've been
Mm.
questioning whether or not there's anything to really fear. But now my videos get taken down for that. But anyway, continue because I'm not censoring people's
Well,
opinions on this
I'll go
matter.
right.
But I'm saying this:
I'll,
I'm pro anti-vax, even though I'm not
well,
anti-vax.
right. No, I hear you. I totally listen to your point of view about vax, and I think it makes sense. Like, if you're gonna vax, okay, so I'm fully vaccinated, so I've experienced the whole, vaccinated situation. I'm fine. I'm broken from whatever, spell they were trying to put me under in some ways. Like, I'm going in that direction. Were the vaccines what they are today? That's a very good question, and I doubt it. Um, so, wasn't there more mercury in vaccines in the past? So maybe mercury wasn't so bad for us after all. I mean, these types of things are what comes to my mind. So I was like, okay, those aren't the reasons why I didn't give my children the vax. It's just because I don't feel like they need to go through what I went through. It's unnecessary. I have done the research, and they haven't gotten, they're the only struggle that we go through, because I homeschool my children too. See, this is the thing. It's like, trust me, if there's any
Hey,
moms out there, if there's any
one
like,
second here. Let me go ahead and turn it.
you
I have
could
somebody else trying to call me.
definitely.
But anyway, look, yeah.
Oh, go
So
ahead, go ahead.
okay, so look, I'm of the opinion because I have people here who are calling me pro-vax, and I want to say this: anytime there's a topic that is 100% predictable, like I can tell by one bumper sticker somebody's opinion on 50 different issues, and all those issues are
Mhm.
meaningless to me because I think that anything that is perfectly split down the middle is a political football. So I think people are being played.
Right,
And so I think that the
right,
anti-vaxxers, like the ones who protest and they're worried about the future, um, I think that they are more or less part of a government agitated group. And it's almost like one group is terrified of the virus, and the other side laughs at them and says, "You guys are foolish. Nothing." They're like, "There's nothing to fear. Why are you wearing the mask?" And the other side says, "I'm
right.
terrified of the vaccine." It's just like, wait a minute. Both sides are.
Well, yeah, you're right. And then at this point, really quick, because I know there are other people trying to call in. If I put the mask on my children now, at this point, after vaccinating them for so long, I mean, immunizing them for so long, it would be detrimental to their immunization. So I would be doing them injustice if I don't allow them to assimilate to whatever bacteria and so-called viruses are out in the world. So that was my main point of the whole thing. Uh, the next thing I really quick wanted to mention, I don't know if you heard about this news, but Pfizer was coercing countries, okay, like Argentina and Brazil, for, and I hope this is going to be this. I mean, this was news, okay, for they were demanding military bases guaranteed for vaccines. So so not only were they saying, okay, with the vaccines are limited, but they're going to certain countries saying, hey, give us your military base and we'll guarantee you the vaccine, point blank. And then if they say no, then they try to sell them some insurance. So there's some twisted shit that Pfizer's doing that I'm just like, that's another reason why I'm anti-vax. It's because it's more than just the fucking what's in the needle. It's actually what's behind the curtain, just in the Wizard of fucking Oz. And that's what I want to say. So
Awesome, awesome.
do
Appreciate
your
that.
research, figure that out. Like, just know that it's the Pfizer is up to no good. Johnson Johnson, all these people, but these people, yeah, they shady as fuck. So just that's you know that's a real main reason, right? I mean, we gotta keep those people far. But anyway, it was so nice talking to you, Tim. Thank you so much for giving
Awesome.
me
Yeah,
this
appreciate the
time.
call, and thanks for promoting the forum. I want to make more use of the forum in the future, and so I'll send people over there, Infinite Plane Media /community. You can introduce yourself in the forum, and then they can find you there and your music. Thanks again for calling. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, IPS, how's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good here, and just got off the phone with the caller about this topic, which I don't know if you know, but my video from the other night when you and I spoke, YouTube pulled a channel over it, which I don't
I
keep. I replaced
heard
it.
that was what I was going to start off with. I was going to apologize for being the person who got it struck down, got you censored. So
I want to thank
it's
you.
crazy because
I want to
yeah,
thank you because look,
well,
the sooner we get censored 150 times, the sooner the world's going to look and they're going to say, "Why is this channel being targeted?" So, no, I appreciate it. It's another
dude, I
notch.
feel bad. I feel bad, and I should have known better. You know, they're out bragging today. I saw an article that they've deleted like 1 million videos for medical misinformation, and I should have known that they had their algorithms on it and not even brought it up. It's actually a smart way you say your stance is. So it sucks that you're trying to just have a call-in show and people can't even call in and say something because YouTube takes that against you and gives you a strike and takes down your channel. So sorry again about that.
No, not at all. I
My
want to
bad.
say thank you for real because I'm encouraging people to call in literally and speak their minds because we have so many redundancies. Because even though they kicked us off 80 some times, most of those channels are still there and they're still validated and I can log back in. So we're live right now on 3 YouTube channels in addition to everything else. And the archive from that show already went out. So no, it's too late. We let the genie out of the bottle. It's too late. You know, anything they do is just it's futile. So no, I'm actually happy about it. We're keeping tabs. You know, we're keeping track. It's a record.
Yeah, it'll create like a black market, and I think that stuff will be in good demand. But yeah, it sucks. We have to think about. I guess you have a pretty good plan with you can have channels go down. Although they could strike all your channels at once. I guess if you're streaming on 3 and somebody calls in and says something, I guess is one risk with that approach.
They
But
they haven't been able to because I never turned them off. So the live stream we're listening to now, even though I'm recording this segment, has been going on for some 70 hours and it will never process. And I found this to be foolproof. The only time they ever get me with a strike is if I upload a video in isolation. So they might not like it, but they can't render a video that's a week long.
it just sucks. It's like, do they even tell us what the medical misinformation is? No. And they don't even give us a list of like what the WHO is saying. Like YouTube is essentially saying they have some list of all the claims the WHO has made, and you can't say anything off that list. And you know, our conversation yesterday wasn't even um, that misinformation filled or anything. So yeah, it sucks. But what's the topic at hand today? I don't want to get you struck again.
Well,
The giant trees, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, one thing. Okay, so infectious waste. If the mask is infectious waste, just hypothetically, why are people hanging it from their rear view mirrors in their cars? Like that should be in the trash. So, you know, we're just making social commentary just to question the official narratives. And I think that's what's really so dangerous. And they're just using this as a loophole because obviously we're raising valid points. And even though I'm not necessarily specifically an anti-vaxxer and I'm pro anti-vaxxer, I'm not going to take I'm not going to take a cough drop if they tell me to, just because I don't trust them on anything. So I kind of think one of the side effects of this operation has been to try to create a more compliant population. And that's one of the side effects of the vax, more than anything that bothers me.
Yes, and the censorship and the coercing and forcing things and telling us what to do. I just saw something. Joe Biden came out today and said, well, I probably can't even quote him because they'll take it down for misinformation or something. But it just scares me what he's talking about with invoking all these wartime terminologies, like we're at war with the virus, and he says, "I'm going to do everything in my power. I will not relent until we beat this virus." So anything's acceptable. Anything's on the table if it's war. I mean, they could use these troops that are already out in the street and round up dissidents or anything. Like they say, everything is still on the table for them. And I think that they're kind of freaking out at the moment, because if there wasn't as big of a ripple going through the population, they wouldn't have to resort to such uh, blatant things that might actually wake more people up. The Streisand effect.
Well, after we spoke last night, I was looking at my Twitter feed, and every few minutes something would fly by my feed. So somebody took this vax and this happened. And even though you can't necessarily say that A caused B, these stories are numerous. And so it looks like is this a deliberate attempt to sabotage the public confidence in this thing? I don't know. The left is a bunch of vax junkies and mask cucks, and the right are being, I think, they're doing their due diligence, which of course again is labeled as dangerous misinformation. But anyway, what do you make of all these very popular stories of people dropping dead like flies?
So you're going to go there. You're not even going to let them censor you. I think that there's something very peculiar going on, and I've done in-depth coverage on these situations. I just saw another one that I just posted. It's really sad. I don't know if it's necessarily what everybody is jumping to the conclusion it is, but it doesn't look good for the. I'm trying to pick my words. Yeah, it's I don't know, because all we can really go off of is the clinical trial results, and then what happens in the wild, so to speak. So we have the social media posts, we have databases like, I'm not even going to say the word because it probably is a red flag word for the algo, but yeah, we see enough of it in the wild that we have to really question these known liars in the big pharma companies.
Right. And here's something I'm finding to be great. We're dealing with known liars, and I think we can just call it that. I'm seeing people calling out hoaxes on a whole new level. There are people who are questioning if Joe Biden is even there, or if he's literally like a hologram or something. And did you see that piece, by the way, yesterday, where the top of Joe Biden's head disappeared as he walked in the room?
Yes, I saw it. And I don't know if that was just, him matching the wall, or if that was something else. I was trying to look really closely at some of the markings on the wall. I was just thinking, though, either way, it's funny that that's like the poster boy of the Democrats right now, given how much they disdain white people, seemingly. And it's just crazy that they've made such a big issue out of this, white privilege and stuff over the years, and then this is the guy they went with.
Yes, absolutely.
He matches the white wall.
Yeah, no, he's
fading into the.
Yeah, it was like the Predator, where he blends in with the background like a chameleon. But
what was your assessment, your analysis from watching that tape? Do you think that there was some green screenery going on?
Well, see, that makes no sense to me at all. Like, I can understand a body double, but maybe that's what they have to do. Maybe it's more convincing. I mean, the technology is there to digitally insert somebody, but then the question is why? Why do we have a CGI president and not the real thing? So to me, it's an open question.
Yeah, and why aren't they using the Oval Office? I guess maybe they just figured no one would notice, so less travel or something, easier to produce. I don't know. You would think that they would just use the actual building, but it seems like they have different venues, and maybe that's just an actual thing the government does. If they're like, they're not smart enough to know. We tell them there's people on the moon, and they believe that. So I don't know what to make of it exactly. If it's just their laziness, I don't even think there's anything like they're trying to fool us with. Like, I think Joe has access to all the presidential stuff, so I don't know. That's where the theory kind of falls apart for me. But it is weird that they're doing movie magic in politics as well.
Right, and I remember there's this clip where Barack Obama was talking about how he would like to be able to have a third term through a proxy, through a puppet, where he could just sit in his flop clothes in his basement and remote control it. And he gives this duper's delight grin. And I kind of look at Biden as basically, Obama's third term as a proxy. I just can't figure out if it's Weekend at Bernie's, a hologram, or if it's Beau Biden in a hideous silicone mask.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I don't think it's Obama that's really calling all the shots. I could be wrong. I feel like Obama and Biden are getting their marching orders. They're both drones from the same entity or person who's calling the shots. But maybe it's like one person on a puppet and then another person underneath him on a puppet string. But do you see that Obama is like the top of the totem pole?
No, I really don't, honestly. I think these guys are all clearly puppets. And yeah, I'm looking at this CGI Joe Biden thing as just, are they just trying to prop up this guy who probably is dead just long enough so that we don't cry foul when Kamala Harris takes over? And I think that might be in the cards here, which it's a nightmarish thing.
That's looking likely.
Well, it's predicted by The Simpsons, so it's almost a certainty.
Yeah, she was wearing the same outfit as Lisa in the episode, like where they flashed to the future and Lisa became president at the inauguration. So yeah, lots of weird stuff going on with the politics these days. And yeah, like I don't think they did it. It's like you were saying earlier with the V word. It's hard to tell if we're jumping to predictable, desired outrage. And like right now, everybody hates Joe Biden. Like I guess a lot of people are happy it's not Trump, but I don't think there's that many people who are like actually happy with Joe Biden's performance. Like you go to a YouTube video and it's like 99% thumbs down. Everyone's just loving to hate on him. But I just don't know why they wouldn't have gone with somebody more popular, that can actually like a JFK kind of personality that they can hype up. And I know they do try to hype up Joe Biden, but it doesn't seem like it's working.
No, not at all. It doesn't seem to be working at all. It is very curious, and it's almost like they did it because he's disposable. And here's a quote. So there's an episode from The Simpsons, episode 17, season 11. And this is from 21 years ago. And this is Lisa Simpson in an identical uniform or wardrobe to what Kamala is wearing. And she says, "As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." I mean, that's pretty blatant.
It's very blatant because especially Trump obviously hadn't become president yet, and it wasn't even being discussed. It doesn't even I guess it kind of makes sense knowing the celebrity culture, but he wasn't like he wasn't a well-known politician that looked like he had presidential ambitions or anything. And I guess we have to point out the possibility that Kamala could be, matching Lisa since the Simpsons had already been out there. But yeah, it does seem like predictive programming, and I'm guessing all from the same source. I doubt that it's like Kamala pranking us or anything.
Right. And with regards to Biden, I was thinking about the symbolism of him, and I thought, well, maybe Joe Biden represents an old, enfeebled white America giving way to something new. And that's represented by Kamala Harris. And so we're watching him die, and it's kind of like, and if you look at it, we're actually seeing, that's kind of how my impression, it's like we're watching the end of this version of America.
To make the next move more dramatic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's good writing, and I think that's what they're doing.
It is good writing, because if they're playing off someone that, is really poor performance, then the next person, it looks like Kamala is at the front of the line here. She's just going to shine that much brighter because of his lackluster. You're right.
Yes, exactly. And okay, so this is, again, more examples of predictive programming. Yesterday or the other day, we were speaking about Stanley Kubrick and this coming space war narrative. So one final thing here. We now have discussion of Russia and China more or less, I guess, staking their claim on the moon. So Space 9/11 seems to be in the cards as like the next thing coming along. Any thoughts on that, on the Stanley Kubrick kind of more or less predicting or meta-scripting our future?
Yes. Great video you did yesterday. Shame it got deleted. Or was there one in between? I don't remember. But the one you did yesterday was really good with showing The Shining and like the twins. I never thought about that, or if I had, I forgot that I thought about it. The twins representing the towers, I thought was very interesting. Also, it's in regards to the moon. I saw a news story today that they were going to send 6.66 million sperm samples to the moon because I guess that's supposed to be a good idea or something. Did you see that one?
Okay, I knew that they were sending a whole lot of stuff to the moon. I didn't know it was 6.66 million. Doesn't
Well, I
surprise
assumed
me.
it was. I saw that they were going to send 6.7, so I just assumed they rounded it. Try 6.7 million sperm samples to the moon.
Now, this 666 number is always connected with the space program in general, and I think it has to do with the sun god and sun worship. But yes, NASA is sending. I'm going to find that headline. Man, that's just so in your face. It's kind of like Peg Whitman. She was the captain of this space station for some time, and she orbited the world for 666 days. Like, again, that they chose that.
Well, there's also just the aspect of, it looks like an egg up in the sky, and they've done so many of these like fertility rituals with the phallic shooting off the ground, and then the astronaut, like the baby at the end of 2001 Space Odyssey, the astronauts look like a fetus with the umbilical cord and the big head and all this stuff. You've covered this before, but I just see it like blatant insemination ritual here with the sperm being sent to the moon, which is what they've been doing, playing out for a lot of, iterations here.
Great catch here. It says that specifically. It says we need a moon ark to store frozen seed, sperm, and eggs from 6.7 million Earth species. So yeah, clearly they rounded it because 6.666 would have been a little too obvious here. So you got the phallic rocket that's going to basically deposit this stuff on the moon. Give me a break. It's a ritual. It's a fertility rite.
Exactly. So I guess that'd be kind of a question I'd pose to you, because you've covered this before. Like, what do you see in terms of the fertility ritual and the occult side of that, or the mythology or anything? I know you've done a ton of presentations on this. Does anything come to mind when you see the story?
With this one, yeah, absolutely, because there's stages to the space program. It went from first man in space, then you had first man on the moon, then you had a period of time in low Earth orbit, and now we're getting to the point of actual colonization. And it only makes sense that before we actually have colonization, there's going to be some ritual insemination. Like the obelisk, of course, is the Earth god, and it has to go knock up the other planets, basically. And yeah, that's exactly what it looks like to me. And the fact that they put that 666 on there seals the deal, because that number is always associated with incarnated sun gods. That's what the Pope's number references. The Pope has been his title, which is basically the Vicar of Christ, translates with numerology to 666 for this reason. He's the embodied sun god. So again, what you caught here, they also call it a Noah's Ark on the moon. So they're using all kinds of archaic symbolism and terminology here. It's definitely fertility cult.
Fascinating. And just to loop back, the coverage you did the other day with the 9/11, I guess you've been doing it for a few episodes in the series. The 9/11 and the Kubrick stuff, I find very interesting. Like, I don't know if I go far enough to say that he's still on the world stage, or behind the curtains of the world stage, but I wouldn't put it past him. And it just begs the question: why was there so much encoding into his early films? Was it just a fact of it, or just a case of them telling him, okay, here's the predictive programming we need you to put in there, all work and no play, or A11 and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and the standing up at the carpet looking like the Apollo launch site, and the Apollo on the kid's sweater, just so many things like that. And then the 9/11 stuff too. Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. So are you partially joking when you say you think he's still on the world stage, or is there something that really makes you think that?
Well, I think he's probably, age-wise, I don't think he's an active participant, but I can see that his vision and his script, his narrative framework that was evident in all of his films, I think it probably extends to stuff we haven't seen yet. Like, I kind of think even the coronavirus lockdown, was hinted at. In fact, even in Space Odyssey, it even does foreshadow a virus as a false pretext for a lockdown. And what kind of sealed it for me, among a few other details, is that his first film, Doctor Strangelove, was going to be screened on 11/22/63, and they canceled it because of the assassination of JFK. And the same body of research that connects Kubrick to predicting 9/11 has connected him to essentially directing the so-called assassination. This theory suggests the assassination was fake, but yeah, even this has a lot of Kubrick connections.
Very interesting. And how would you see that working? I know that, we can't really tell for sure. We can only kind of infer, but do you see him writing the metascript, as you would call it, or do you see him enacting it and kind of putting it into art?
Yeah, that's probably what I think his task was, that of, and you can find many articles that talk about the alchemy of his work with regards to Space Odyssey. I think his task was getting us to basically emotionally and psychologically attach ourselves to the mythology of the space age. So they replaced all the old gods with this new vision of a multi-planetary species human. So I kind of think that this task was going to be about transforming humanity over a period of time. And I think that maybe as a script writer, his task would have been, okay, well, we need this to consolidate everybody on this new concept of sin. This is the virus. As in, we need a universal threat. I mean, how many times have we heard them talk about universal threats to unite everybody, whether it's climate change specifically, or asteroids, alien invasion?
Right. The term existential threat, which I guess means a threat to our existence itself, right?
Exactly. So I would say that they probably started with the end in mind. And that's my thinking here. I kind of think that 2020 was the end of the age as far as the script goes, because many of these events, like 9/11 and many others, are more or less connected to 2020 as an end date. So it's bookended. And in my analysis of what I call the metascript, I've come to believe that the end of the age and the new age, I think that we just passed that time period. And I think they are able to write the script and stick to it because they write it with the end in mind. And this gives them solid dates to work back from. And this would explain all of the weird coincidences, like these things that are just beyond coincidence. Like I brought up last night, the blackouts in New York happening exactly 42 years apart, or many other things we can name. I think that the only way it would work is if you started with the end in mind. And I think that Kubrick would have been more or less a technical advisor because of his expertise on visual special effects.
Fascinating. Yeah, I've got to do some more research. Maybe we all do, just about like how are those decisions made in things like The Shining to get the carpet just right, and to like who did the costume design there. I don't know if we'll ever really know. Was that you covering, or was that me reading somewhere else? Stanley Kubrick's daughter has been in the news lately for like retweeting stuff about QAnon and stuff. I don't know if you saw that. There was one that she retweeted, which was a photoshopped image of Jake, the QAnon shaman, bursting through the door like Jack did in Shining with the axe and sticking his head through the hole. Did you see the drama about his daughter?
No, I haven't. But now that I think about it, I'm going to have to look at that because, wow, that would be funny. And something else you brought up, would we be able to find out who is behind orchestrating or how they actually pull it off? I did manage to find an article last year about Christopher Nolan and the Batman movies, and how the art director that he hired was the guy that put the connections to Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing in the film. And so you can actually find a who done it, like actually who did it. You can solve that mystery with regards to who connected these major psyops to these Batman movies. And that story ends in a weird way because the art director that Christopher Nolan used actually ended up dead, and he's buried in a cemetery in Sandy Hook. So there are some answers. I think you could find it in the art departments and some kind of oversight by I would imagine, the intelligence agencies that run the psyops and are guiding these broader stories.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And we can only guess, really, because even when they tell us one of those stories, it could just be a fall guy that they said, oh, no, they caught on to it. It was you. Just say it was you, and here's why. And also they can just say, hey, Christopher Nolan, we're going to give you your budget here, but you need to pick this as your art director, and what he says goes, or something like that. But yeah, man, thanks for taking my call. And I'm sorry again about the saying some stuff that YouTube, I know YouTube doesn't like, so I don't know why I said it on your show other than just to defend the other side of the issue. But keep up the great work, man. I appreciate you taking my call.
Awesome. No, that was our 89th badge of honor as a channel. Thanks for the call, Tim Truth. Appreciate it. And yes, dangerous misinformation got us kicked off, and I'm happy about it because we're going to reach a breaking point here. Like I said, we have backup channels, we have redundancies. We're live right now on 3 YouTube channels concurrently, along with everything else. And as much as they would like to censor us and block us, they can't, because we've got video files that are so large that they can never be processed. Our videos are like a week long. I never turn them off for this reason. And I talk about it because I know they're listening, and I know it hurts them. And I'm just curious, like when they say, our team members sat around and deliberated for hours last night and decided to flag your video. Like, I want to know how many people are sitting around discussing these things, and where are the victims? Show me the victims. Like, I would like to see a written statement or maybe a video of somebody weeping, somebody crying, just complaining about something that somebody said on the internet. Where are the victims that we're censoring these videos for? It's like the Minority Report. You're pre-convicted of a hate crime, pre-convicted of a thought crime. All right, so let us continue. This thing with Stanley Kubrick, if you're new to it, this whole theory is based on the idea that all of the major conspiracy theories of recent memory are all guided by the same hidden hand. So there aren't factions. It's not like the left wing does fake shootings and the right wing does fake terror attacks, but they're united at the top of the pyramid, so to speak. And so the idea here is that they took the best actors, the best directors, and charged them with helping to create this necessary sequence of major psychodramas that would result in the changes that they seek to make in the world itself. And that may sound like a conspiracy theory or maybe a couple of years ago, but you can't deny that the world has utterly been changed in the last year. This is now year 2 of Clown World, which kicked off on 3/11/2020, in which everybody showed just how programmed they've been this entire time. You didn't know that you lived in a world of MK Ultra sleeper agents? You do now. But no, I like to be pretty brazen about the fact that we respect free speech, and the exchange of ideas is something that we defend here. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will happily lose a YouTube channel to defend your right to say it. And at the end of the night, all of the recordings here get uploaded and disseminated anyway. So if you don't want to miss anything, become a patron for $2 a month at patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society, and you won't miss a thing. Overthought says the Q believers are still waiting in queue. Yeah, the Q believers are still waiting for Q-tips. The anonymous Q-tips from their anonymous source that tells them to remain in queue and trust the plan. They don't want the Q-tips that go up their nose from the bad guys. Again, I want to point out, and one of our first callers, Hoaxahontis, brought this up. Over at the Infinite Plane site, if you go to infiniteplane.media, the very first button says the IPS Public Web Forum. As many of you know, our Discord server is active 24/7, and if you miss a few days, you've got to scroll for miles to see what you've missed. So I'm distilling the best topics, the best ideas and links and conversation starters and putting them over here in the public forum, which it's more lasting, it's organized, it's searchable, and these threads can be built on for years. And of course, when somebody responds to a thread, you get an email notifying you. So it's just another area to network that will ensure that we maintain the integrity of this think tank into the future, despite the best efforts of Big Brother to shut it down. You don't have to pay. It's a free open forum for the public, like I said. And also Discord is also available for Patreon members. Now the chat rooms, by the way, and this is why I'm so big on being on all these video platforms. The chats all cross post. So if you're on YouTube, you can chat with somebody on DLive, etc. But this is where the think tank used to exist. The think tank has always just been a highly active and engaged chat room. And people wonder, why do you have so many moderators? So if you go into our YouTube channel, you'll have hundreds of users with wrenches, which allows you to ban people. And that's because we used to say, let's just keep this a members only thing and ban everybody who's not a part of what we're discussing, because we're trying to maintain quality. And it worked. It turned out that we could actually create more or less like what a paywall does, but without a paywall. A wall, a phalanx of wrenches. So if you're curious about why you're always seeing penguins with wrenches associated with Infinite Plane Radio, that's the origin story. And we specifically used the wrenches, the moderators, to remove trolls or just agents there to distract people from the substance of the conversation. Okay, shock claim, Kobe Bryant is alive. I mentioned this earlier, and here is the theory. Now, this is really interesting. If you look into CIA disguise and their procedures, Jonah Mendez was the CIA master of disguise for some 27 years. And one of the things she said was that you always want to upset expectations. In other words, if somebody sees you, you want them to check every box on a list of attributes opposite of what you used to be. So if you're thin, you should be large. You should be heavier. If you have short hair, you should have long hair. If you're clean shaven, you should grow a beard. You do all these things to throw people off. So someone brought this to me and they said they believe that Kobe Bryant, who is probably not dead if you've looked at any of the so-called evidence, that Kobe Bryant has been recast as another athlete known as Myles Garrett. So this is, of course, a football player. Myles Garrett, American football defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. So it sounds absurd, I'm sure, the first time hearing it. This is from Conscious X. And I'm going to play some from here just so you can see that this does fit the pattern. Kobe Bryant was very wiry compared to this character, clean shaven. But let me go ahead and play a clip. This is from Conscious X. This video came from a commenter recommending it.
I'd like to take this.
Okay, so it starts off with he's playing basketball, and this is where I think people have noticed the similarities in the style of his playing.
Ripping the ball away from people. I'm like, this guy here do that. I don't know about all the lateral quickness and stuff, but I know in the paint he'll definitely be a crazy problem.
Yeah, I didn't play in the NBA, Jay, but I played with enough NBA players early in my career in the off season, as well as pickup when I was in college. I hate to say it, man. I have never seen an NFL football player that could play in the NBA.
Okay, there you go. So it's been pointed out that he's uncharacteristically good at basketball for a football player. And his name again is Myles Garrett. And the theory posited here by Conscious X is that you're looking at Kobe Bryant possibly in prosthetics, a bodysuit, or maybe not. Maybe after he faked his death, he just put on weight. So let me go through some of the comments because I'm not really decided on this one. Conscious X put this together, but I want to show you what the commenters think, people who are more familiar with both of these characters. Okay, here we go. Someone says, maybe it's aliens taking on human form shapeshifters. Probably way off. Okay, Lightning McLean says he's got Kobe's dunk packages, the same one from the year 2000. Bro, it can't be Kobe. There's no way someone can go back to being 21 when he died at 41. That's another thing about it too. Jonah Mendez, and I'm going to bring her up really quick. She says you also want to flip expectations with regards to their age. Jonah Mendez is an American former chief of disguise in the Central Intelligence Agency's Office of Technical Service. There's a number of speeches she gives, some talks, interviews she's conducted, and this is just par for the course. You're going to want to do things that make people instantly incredulous. Because most people take incredulity as an argument in favor of their point of view. Well, there's no way it could be this. Okay, let's continue. I'm going through the comments posted below. Dub says, you know they made that Thor fat in Avengers. They can make any suit they want. Something to think about. Chicago Drill says, you can't tell me that's not Kobe. He sounds and looks the same, and he plays basketball the same. He goes up for a dunk in the same motion, and the layup gives it away. So, again, these are individuals who know more about Kobe and Miles. I don't know. I haven't watched either of them play. That's what they're saying. This is where it's at, says, hell no. That's not Kobe. Myles Garrett is a psyop. He hit that quarterback Mason Rudolph. Okay, listen to this one. Lionel Sanchez says he's probably juiced up off of adrenochrome. Right? Let's see. Now, we might have to listen. Melina Universe says that's Kobe's voice. It's him for real. They shouldn't do this, as they have people so sad about his death. This is sickening. Someone else says, I wonder what happened to his daughter. Okay, so this is, again, convincing to a lot of people. Now, let's go ahead and listen to him speaking, just so you have a reference.
For me to share not only what I've been doing, but what I'm doing to take a step forward and leave all that behind me.
Were you surprised when you were reinstated?
Yes and no. I was hoping for it, so I kind of tried thinking and speaking into existence, but you never know at the end of the day, and whatever.
All right, so I don't know, not quite convinced. I'll need to see a close-up Photoshop analysis of the teeth side by side. Just keep it 300 with me said, man, that's Kobe Bryant. You all are asleep. Let's see. Someone else here says that layup gives it away. All right, going on. Someone else did some deeper research, and he says that idiots will believe anything. They played 2 different sports in 2 different states. Well, here's the thing. A rule of thumb. 2 things. One, the rule of thumb. And the second thing is a new word that I think needs to be included in your lexicon if you're concerned with the problem of discerning reality from fiction in the news. So first, anything they could fake in the movies, they can fake in the news. That's just the bottom line. So special effects are not just for the movies. And then 2, you have to ask yourself, well, is it even fakeable? Is it within the realm of possibility? Could it even happen? Are there timeline conflicts? Okay, let me go ahead and open phones again. I believe my ringer, okay, it's back on. If you want to call in. Someone says his daughter will probably be a famous singer someday, like Kate Perry. There's a backup number you can call and put it in the chat. Yeah, some believe that Kate Perry is John Benet Ramsey, which I find to be somewhat believable. Well, very believable, in fact. But if somebody wants to call in, this is where it's at. It says he hit Mason Rudolph with his helmet. So anyway, let's get to the bottom of this. Are we looking at Kobe Bryant repackaged? I mean, that's kind of a not too great of a deal. It's almost a step down. I kind of thought he was sent off to some Atlantis or something. But I think most of us here can agree, or those of us who've looked into it, that his death scene, supposed death scene, the crash scene, the whole thing is very questionable. And just to point out one more thing here. The reason why people come to question some of these events that you should believe because TMZ told you, the reason why people question these things in the first place is that there are details that don't quite add up. And so what you'll find is that, let's say the people who don't believe the moon landing happened, 8% of the population thinks the moon landing was fake. Well, what do they have in common? What they share in common is they investigated. Infinite Plane Radio, do you think that Kobe Bryant is alive?
Oh no, Kobe's alive. He's chilling with Tupac and Epstein and Steve Jobs. And big shout out to Hoaxy Hannes. What a call, great call. No, Myles Garrett is a walking psyop. I'm gonna put you on to what's going on with the NFL. A lot of the high profile problem players in the NFL end up being in the broadcasting booth. Myles Garrett is a pretty articulate dude. He's a smart dude, and he was part of a psyop involving a quarterback by the name of Mason Rudolph. Myles Garrett hit that white dude, Mason, with a helmet on the field. He is a walking psyop, but people are wrong about this. They are not the same people at all. He's soft spoken. He's articulate. He's going to end up in the broadcasting booth or in politics or whatever. He did a humiliation ritual when he hit that dude with the helmet. He was like America's bad guy for a week. But no, I don't buy it at all. The age difference. And another thing is, people are acting like Kobe Bryant could really ball like that. Kobe Bryant is one of the most overrated players in the history of the NBA. He got so many points from the free throw line. And I'm not even a fan like that. And I know he's an overrated ball player, but no, I don't buy this one at all. This is gonna throw a lot of people to. I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is gonna throw a lot of people off.
Well, what can you tell me about this? What can you tell me about the whacking Rudolph on the head with a helmet, with his own helmet, no less?
He hit. Have you pulled it up on the screen? Have you seen this fight at all? And the fight is fake, and it was a huge story. And he said, Myles Garrett said he hit Mason. The dude, keyword Mason, he said that Mason called him the N-word or something like that. And they had a mini riot on the field, really staged riot. You know what I'm saying? With all that gear on, they're just LARPing on the field, and it was so fake. And it was so contrived, and it was a humiliation. But I'm telling you, Myles Garrett is probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. He's going to end up being on TV. And under that type of scrutiny, I don't buy this one. Nah.
Yeah, that's probably not Kobe. Now, this is kind of interesting here. So the guy getting hit on the head's name is Mason. And so for those of you who aren't initiated, past, and raised Freemasons, if you're not in the cult, when you're in the third degree, they hit you on the head with a hammer, but it's all staged. It's a fake. Yep. So this looks very Masonic for hitting a guy named Mason.
It was. As a matter of fact, I saw a show today. It's called, it's a judge show. And I think it's Personal Injury Court or whatever. And there's this dude, he was in the cage, and he was gangbanging with the judge, and he won. He literally threw up Masonic signs to the judge, and the judge ruled in his favor. It was so crazy.
Okay, well, hey, this is great. Another NFL psyop, and there are so many of these things.
Oh man, that's all they do, bro. The whole league is a psyop, man. I'm not big on Zachary Hubbard all the time, but he's been breaking down a lot of these things involving the sports and stuff like that, like the marriage of sports, entertainment, politics, and all that. Like it's mind blowing. Like some of
Yes,
the
it
early
is.
psyops, the psyops involving all the NFL players and the NBA players that die in weird ways, the athletes and all that. And I always say all these estates and the insurance companies and things like that, people don't even really realize like who's controlling all these assets and stuff like that. A lot of these people are worth more dead than they are alive. It's crazy.
Well, this is, I've heard this before. You brought up Zachary Hubbard. This is very consistent. The type of theater we see, it's like what you would see in World Wrestling Entertainment. And
Yeah,
sports is
we
sacred.
live in the worldwide. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying sports are so sacred these days. And you can criticize religion, but when you say sports are fake, criticize the Bible all you want, but don't dare say football's fake or rigged. That's a blasphemy.
Oh yeah, and another thing, I think there's gonna be another wave of COVID again, bro. I don't think they're gonna let it die. Did you see that Duke University said that they're not gonna go to the NCAA's because of the March Madness? They're not going this year. They said it today. They're not going. I was like, what the hell? That's a lot of money that school's walking away from. So again, another big time university is saying they're shutting down. They shut down the whole basketball program. That's unheard of in sport.
Well, another wave, I'd like to say no way. It's not believable, but after that event of 1/6, I think they could just say it. If they say there's another wave and that we have to lock down, the public is on a leash right now, and they have trauma-induced mind control and Stockholm syndrome, and they'll do whatever they're told. So I hope it's not the case, but I won't be shocked.
Yeah. And another thing though, these tree stump things, like, is this gaining traction for real?
It's gaining traction enough that Reuters is now sending out fact checkers to confront anybody on Facebook, basically starting the conversation about whether or not we're looking at ancient giant trees when we're looking at mountains, and specifically in Antarctica. So somebody put the tag on it, research flat earth, and it got Reuters all triggered, and they sent out their agents. Not even reporters. Wow. They're not reporters. They don't do interviews. They're called fact checkers, book burners.
Man, it's the same thing though. Like, I've been like trying to figure out a way to like phrase it though. Like the whole thing about the freedom of the press in the Constitution, bro. I think that it's the freedom to lie, bro. Like this job really doesn't have a lot of oversight. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you could almost literally print anything and you're not gonna go to jail for nothing. Like this is pretty like when we started talking about this a couple of years ago about propaganda being legal and we started finding all this information, I feel like it's legal for the media to do all this, like totally, like from the beginning. And to me, that makes me think that this whole thing's been orchestrated from the beginning of this country, the beginning of the U.S., the United States, bro. Like the whole Constitution is designed for all these people to be able to do this without being punished.
Well, that sounds absolutely accurate to me. And when I say metascript, I'm talking about the blueprint that the elite have, because we can see their fingerprints. They knew that there was going to be a reset and that it was going to be timed along about the time that Saturn and Jupiter have their conjunction, which happens every 20 years or so. And they knew it was going to happen in 2020, at least 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. I believe they knew this.
Yeah, I mean, like, bro, and just to backtrack a little bit, I think that a lot of people like they'll like people will throw a lot of things up against the wall to see what sticks. Like one person did, I think it was Cam B a few years ago. He made a video about Martin Luther King being Don King and stuff like that. And a lot of his other things I didn't really, but that one always stuck out in my mind. But the Myles Garrett one, I don't know, bro. Like, dude is so young. You can't fake a college football career while you're playing in the NBA. I don't care who you are. You cannot be a Superman and just do this. Like I don't know. I don't want to call whoever posted that an agent, but this one is people need to use your discernment a little bit. Just because somebody presents something that might be feasible doesn't mean it's actual fact or something that you should even investigate. Like this one, I would throw it away, like quick, fast. Like shoot it like a free throw.
Yeah, that's what auto hoaxing is actually about. It's like you have to see, okay, it's an extraordinary claim. Let's see if there's anything to it. But like you said, you have to look and see, cross-reference it with other things, and if you can debunk it, you should. And I often will share something, even if I know it's probably not true, just to see what other people have come up with, and just to see how skeptical people are. And I actually think it's a good thing that so many people are willing to even go there. That's how little they trust the liars who control the MSM.
Oh, yeah. Nobody, I mean, it's getting to the point where nobody's even trusting, like, I don't know, like, people with a rational mind and a free thinker is going to look at everybody that has a huge channel right now on YouTube as just an extension of the mainstream media and stuff. That's how come I'm like, the government is going to just probably just lock us all down in some way, because there's no way that we could start a real grassroots movement and not be surveilled by Karens, snitches, by the police, the NSA, CIA, or FBI, and all that. You cannot get 20 people in a like-minded room without no kind of surveillance unless you make sure that there's no phones. It's just like our lives are an open book to these people, point blank.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Westworld or Hunger Games, where the elite have this view where they're almost, when I say the elite, whoever controls the media, they have tremendous amount of power over the minds and perceptions of the masses. And 2020 pretty much vindicated all of the conspiracy theories out there about how centralized control is. And it didn't take like NWO troops to subdue everybody. It just took the TV and Dr. Fauci, and it worked beautifully. And honestly, I mean, they deserve some level of at least appreciate how total this thing is. Like you can laugh, you can mock this stuff, the conspiracy theorists, but I'm sorry, but yes, we just watched the whole world go into lockdown over something invisible. That, I mean, I don't know what people's opinions are on whether or not viruses even exist, but I'm wondering what happened to the flu last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's ignoring the fact that, like, in Miami at one point, they said, like, this was the longest stretch ever in Miami where somebody didn't get shot, what wasn't killed by a gunshot. And then it turns out that everybody in that county, they were counting all that stuff was probably as COVID and stuff like that. So, like, all these statistics, I think that all the statistics that we used to trust, we need to just throw them all out. From how many people actually own guns. They say there's millions, hundreds. We don't know how many people own guns. We don't know how many people are here. We don't even know how much land is on the earth. I personally think that Diego Garcia, that little island, is a jump off for somewhere else. Because that's a major base in the middle of nowhere. If you pull up the map, because my phone just timed out while we're talking, but if you pull up a map and see that island, where are they going? That's a major. I won't say major, but that's a jump off point to somewhere. I just think that, especially now with these stumps and stuff like that, like how much land is out there? Like, I'm not really worried about who Kobe is. I'm worried about land and freedom.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point there. And that's one of the reasons why I think they probably want to censor the flat earth topic so much, is that it has people questioning the globe model, not just the shape, but is it really 70% water? Or is there land they're hiding? And I figured that maybe they're going to start plundering these outer lands, and they're just going to say, oh yeah, this came from outer space.
Yo, flat earth is the gateway drug. You feel me? It is, because if you don't get into flat earth, you're probably never going to get, look at mud floods or, it's just like a jumping point. I think that's how come, like, flat earthers are not going to go kill nobody over this or anything like that. It's the starting point of a debate and opening your mind to everything else. That's how come they ridicule it and stuff like that. People are like always like feeling sorry for themselves. Like, why are people coming down on you? Because what you're looking at is contradicting millions of dollars that was spent to program your ass. Pardon my language. You know what I'm saying? So when you start doubting that stuff and you start putting that stuff in the atmosphere, yeah, they're gonna lump you. So sooner or later, they're gonna start labeling Odo hoaxers some way. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So I mean, like, yeah, it's the gateway drug to freeing your mind.
And what are they going to call us? Non-believers? I mean, they're running out of terms. They call you a denialist. It's like it's pretty much clear to me that the world state has a religion, and I define religion as a worldview. And those of us who don't accept it, we've been outed as heretics, dissidents, and in need of salvation because we reject the injectable Holy Communion, the vax. Not the vax, but the doctrines that support it. Like you reject, if you reject the science, you're unsaved. And I kind of think the vax is just the Holy Communion that shows that you go along with it. And that's why it's such an important issue for them. It shows who believes in the modern paradigm, who believes in the cult of scientism versus who's still skeptical.
Yeah, right now they're trying to figure out who's who and what's what for like the next move, because I don't really believe that they're trying to murk everybody. I think that they're trying to merge this. All right, I'm gonna watch my mouth. They trying to merge a certain lifestyle from the Middle East with communism, and they're trying to put everybody else up under those two systems. When you really think about the three systems, I call them three systems. Call it democracy, the other one communism, and then what's going on in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? And the elites are just sitting there. They're trying to figure out which experiment they're going to run with for the next or after the reset. And right now, I think China is probably ahead. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you'll satisfy the Middle East, you know, with the whole covering your face and all the other things like that, and you know, and they'll just clamp down on the population. That's exactly it. It's one way you want to do it, the nice way, like China, or you want to do it the other way when you're getting stoned and getting executed in the streets. There's not really a lot of options for it.
You know, you make some very valid points. And when they first brought out the face coverings, first I thought censorship. And then I saw the hand sanitizer, which I said, no, this is the holy water of this new paradigm. I said the new religion is clearly a combination of Christian eschatology, that's your global warming end times, Islam, and scientism. And then, of course, you can throw in there communism for sure. But
you got to sprinkle some capitalism, because everybody at the top of the pyramid got to eat while we're the goy. You know what I'm saying? We're the animals. We're the cattle. You feel me? And what they're going to understand is that, at least in this country, I believe that there's probably going to be a good 50 million to 100 million people that's going to really wake up one day that are going to, like, we're not with this. Like, for real, we're not with this no more. And it's going to be everybody from your managers to cops to nurses, doctors, lawyers, judges, sheriffs, sanitation department, the people that cut your lights off. Those are the people that they're going to feel our wrath. Believe that. Sooner or later, people are going to, it's not going to, maybe it'll be spontaneous, but it's not going to be televised, and it's not going to be televised. Ain't no revolution going to be televised. For real.
Not unless it's controlled opposition led from within, like everything that we've seen thus far. I mean, even the leader of the Proud Boys was outed as a federal informant.
But we knew that. We knew that they were cool, but they had, once you have logos and you have a budget, it's the same thing with BLM. You know what I'm saying? Antifa and all that. And you know, the student, it goes. They just keep rerunning the same psyops from the Summer of Rage in the '60s and all that, and all the students, the white liberals, not being racist or anything, but the white liberals and the Jewish people that were running these different movements in the '60s, they're kids. Those people, some of those people went to jail in the '60s for terrorism, and they're teaching kids, bro. They're professors all over. Professors are wilding out, And those are the people that are harming our children, and they're harming us, and they're harming our grandparents and our parents. You don't think that these people ain't scared right now? You don't think that these politicians are not scared shitless to go out the door, that somebody is not, they're going to take Cuomo off the scene because somebody in New York is probably going to try to whack him. If it's even a real dude, because there are real people's lives that are getting affected. They're just acting like we're toy soldiers on a checkerboard. You know what I'm saying? Or with pieces on a chessboard. Bro, people have, like, these nurses dancing, like somebody gonna walk up in one of these hospitals and really let them know what's good. And I'm not saying I want to see it or telling anybody to do it, but yeah, when you whack grandma to get X amount of dollars for each time it's labeled as COVID and you did not take care of our elders, yeah, you're gonna pay for that.
Yeah, someone here says they're throwing Cuomo under the bus. Yeah, this is this should be true. You would imagine that you would expect there to be outrage or something. I would like to think that there would be some sort of response commensurate to the severity of this major psyop. We shall see, I guess. We shall see. But
do you know? But hold on though. But do we really know how many of these old people are really dying? I'm telling you, somebody's grandma get whacked. Somebody's going to get pissed off. And I don't see these nurses walking around like they're acting scared about this. Maybe nobody's dying.
That's what I think. That's what I think. The flu died. I mean, I said this even like everybody's saying it though. Even Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker, has come out saying that all they did was they shuffled around some numbers. It's a big power grab and a psyop. And I think it should be safe to say that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the fact that even saying that jeopardizes the channel, that's almost confirmation that we're on the right track. So I'm going to continue, to say that. I kind of think that what we're looking at is nothing more than the establishment of this new religious paradigm, which you were alluding to as well, and it worked. Clearly, most people believe in it.
Man, bro, I'm gonna tell you, when are people gonna start saying, "Well, I'm immune and I don't have no rights"? And why is it that we're supposed to be considered innocent till we're guilty? But now I'm guilty of having COVID before, and I'm telling you that I'm immune, and I've been immune. How long? When are people going to say, "What about human rights"? Huh?
Well, yes, the presumption of innocence as a principle has been thrown out the window. You've all been pre-convicted. And people were mad about this on the smaller scale after 9/11, where it seemed like, okay, now we're targeting an ethnic group. We're targeting a religion. And so you had people standing up for that saying, you can't just pre-convict all Muslims of terrorism. It becomes xenophobia, it becomes bigoted, etc. Well, now you're allowed to be bigoted and xenophobic against everybody. Literally everybody.
Well, they went so far. Every time I go to the airport, I hate flying so much right now because the same people that they said were the terrorists are the people that are patting me down and making me taking my shoes off. And I'm offended every time. But when we started giving up those little rights, that's when they just paved the way for this. So, it's the new 9/11, it's 3/11. You feel me? And it's the same thing, but it's just worse. But the next time it's coming around, it's going to be the blue hats. And I'm not even saying it like, being facetious, white hats, black hats, small hats. When them blue hats come through, that's going to be when people are going to realize something's true, because this is really a worldwide system, man. I could sit here and watch the news around the world and I don't understand what they're saying, but they're all saying the same thing. Blah, 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 COVID, blah, 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 mask, blah, 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 blah. You feel me? It's worldwide for real. And the next round of it, I think, that's when we're going to go into the 1984 thing. They have so many people working from home, going to school, our little apartments are going to be they're going to be our jail cells. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have get a pass to go to the store to prove that you're essential or whatever, and things like that. And people who are working in sanitation department are probably going to have some, in the future one day, they're going to be on par with the police department, because the post office, they have guns. A lot of people don't even realize that the post office has not military wing of it, but they have access to weapons and all that. What's gonna happen when the sanitation department, has to? I don't know, bro. Like, I don't want to take it that far and make it
Well,
sound like.
let's go a little further though, because one, it does seem like the worst nightmare of the conspiracy theorists about being dragged off to FEMA camps has been realized, but in the sense that they've made the home the FEMA camp, and everybody's ready to basically lock down at will. So you have that, but as far as where things are going, if we go by predictive programming as a predictive model, 2021 is the year of Mad Max. 2022 is the year of Soylent Green.
Green. Man, all I know is about 20 years from now, 19 years after COVID hit, the next thing is going to pop off. And it's going to be a doozy. Probably that's when they probably going to let a Jesus Christ or Muhammad hologram have a concert, or, I just can't call it no more, bro. Like, I'm just so sick and tired of this whole thing, and the way the media could just twist the truth, it's just mind blowing. But I don't want to vent too much. I'm gonna just enjoy the rest of the call. Big shout out to Hoaxy. That was an awesome call. Tim Truth, the whole crew, and I'm gonna jump in the chat and somebody else call.
Awesome. Well, hey, this is where it's at. Appreciate you calling in as always. And yeah, we're always opening the phones to more callers. It's great hearing from Hoaxy. We always hear her music here. You've heard a number of her songs. So yeah, appreciate the call. Have a great night.
All right. Later, homie. Peace.
Some overthought says the next one will be the aliens. That kind of seemed to be alluded to. So we've been analyzing the Stanley Kubrick films in this context. And Space Odyssey 2001, in addition to the references to 9/11, and this is a movie that came out in 1968, it has references to a lockdown under false pretenses. A virus being used as an excuse for a lockdown. So a false pretense for what? A cover story is what they use, the phrase they use. A cover story for what? And I believe it alludes to an alien. And also you have hell, HA. There's a few things about this we should probably look into, but mainly I think we're looking at the emergence of the alien threat that they've been telling us about, and it may actually be AI. Totally manufactured, obviously, but what is it really going to take to convince people? Have you met any real skeptics? 99.9% of the population appear to be auto-believers. And really quick, let me break down those terms. You may hear it on this channel, auto-hoaxer. Auto-hoaxer used to be a pejorative term. So they call you a hoaxer if you say something in the news is a hoax, which is projection. Because you're saying, oh, this guy's doing a hoax. Now you're a hoaxer? That doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not a magician if I observe somebody doing stage magic and I call it out as a magic trick. But this is what they do. They call you a hoaxer if you see evidence of a hoax. Well, among the hoaxers, the ones who called out the hoaxes first, even if they didn't have time to sort out all the facts, they used to call them auto-hoaxers as a pejorative. Don't be an auto-hoaxer. It meant to discredit you. And I remember at the time, I first heard the term from Paul Joseph Watson from InfoWars. And he was basically banning people. He said, anybody calling this a hoax, referring to the truck attack in Nice, he said, anyone calling this a hoax, all you auto-hoaxers are going to get banned. This is a real attack, real victims. It was a Muslim killing people. So if you called it a hoax, they banned you. Anyway, the more I observed, the more I realized that, hey, the people calling it a hoax first, one, they seem to be doing it because they get more hits. It's like clickbait. But two, they're right 100% of the time. They haven't been wrong. And I realized the people who assumed the news media events to be real first, and then later having to back it up and realize they were misled, they were wrong 100% of the time. The ones who said don't call it a hoax without first waiting until the victims are done grieving, the ones who said don't rush to investigate it, yeah, they were all wrong. So the auto-hoaxers, of course, would be the ones who are automatically calling it a hoax until the evidence supports it, or unless the evidence supports it. And there is this caveat, it's not everything is fake. Only extraordinary claims. If they say it's going to rain the next day, it's not extraordinary. But when they say some 90-pound kid with a bowl cut carrying 14 weapons kicked down a door and shot 26 before shooting himself and he got a headshot every time, they give you some story. It sounds like it's basically a cartoon violence. Yeah, you'd have to look for evidence. That's too extraordinary to just believe it. Now, on the other side of it, you have the auto believers. So the auto believers are the ones who automatically assume it's all real, unless somebody tells them it's a hoax. So they assume that the hoax is the exception, not the rule. It's the rare exception. And that's the majority. The majority of the population believe that what's reported is pretty much vetted and truthful, with some bias here or there, but they would never be totally made up stories, fictions presented as real. There's no way they would hire actors to fake a tragedy. They would never, the auto believers would never question their media priesthood. And so now you have this split between auto believers and auto hoaxers. Now, somewhere in the middle, though, you do have people who knee-jerk call everything fake, and what they're doing is not necessarily the same thing as what we're doing. If you're not parsing the facts before calling something fake, then you may be engaging in what I would call nihilism. Posel says, it's hard for me not to feel like I'm living my life in a history book about the fall of the American Republic written in Chinese. Now, we can point out, the Russians, the Chinese. You can point out these various actors on the world stage. But ultimately, you have to keep in mind, the International Space Station. Every single nation with a space program is on the same program. They're all friends up above. The International Space Station, to me, is proof that there's a conspiracy by a centralized elite, and the conspiracy is against the masses. It's not Russia and China trying to beat America in the space race. It's the oligarchs staying ahead of the masses. This is where it's at. TV says they cut off your other channel. Let me take a look. But basically, we have so many backups, and I did come up with something. This is something you might find to be very convenient. If you go to Tim Osman, that's TIMOZMAN.cc, like Chief Crow. TimOsman.cc gives you a list. One, it has my numbers you can call. You can also call in on Skype. It has the YouTube, DLive, Facebook, Twitch, and also the audio stream if you just want to listen on audio. All right, everyone, I want to say thanks for joining. Appreciate the callers very much. This will be replayed tomorrow. I have a new routine, which I'm going to maintain. So the late night streams we do like this, I premiere them the next morning. So if you miss it, you'll catch it, and other people will be there as well. Okay, this track is called March 11th, featuring PGA. This is JT33. Again, happy hoaxiversary COVID-19.
3/11/2020 was our new 9/11, and it wasn't as spectacular, and it wasn't all of a sudden, so it didn't exactly shock people in the same way. It's more like it stepped on. But like 9/11, 3/11 was preceded by a lot of media foreshadowing.
I've lost my mind dealing with drama. That comment, the shit with weight is just a matter of time. Cause I find myself in front of these pages. Can't you see what the rage is? Lost time and lost wages. In quarantine they stick them all the whole world is playing victim. You don't realize and let them don't face the fact that they're hitting them. Cause I'm gunning them, running them on through to this phase of shit that they're sitting in. Sick of listening to their words while they're crumbling, tumbling, falling out of their mouths. From taking it down south to the border. But this clip we be so tight with color that Supreme Order here. The fear, they pushing no justice gets served. They got some motherfucking nerve. You're gonna like the way we run shit, we run it tight. You fucking heard me right. And it be like they're close